21st workshop meeting of the Marlborough Township Board of Education here at Franklin Elementary School. Cindy, will you please call the roll?
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Dean? Here. Mr. Dwyer?
Here.
Mrs. Eddy? Here. Mrs. Cow? Here. Mr. Marshall? Here. Mrs. Matos? Here. Mrs. Rosenwald?
Here.
Mr. Wolonsky?
Here. Please be advised this meeting is being held in accordance with the Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. The adequate notice of date, time, and agenda has been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the news transcript. As been posted and filed with the Marlborough Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm going to bring your attention to, but I'm not going to read in its entirety, statement of videotaping a public portion of Board of Education meetings, a public session statement, as well as no smoking on the school grounds. At this time, it's my extreme pleasure to introduce first grade student Zachary Caporal, who will lead us in the pledge. Everybody please rise.
Please stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be so.
Well done. Review of the agenda tonight shows we're having a student presentation, followed by a public session, then the item, followed by a review of our curriculum guide of gifted and talented. We'll have old business, new business, second public session as well, and we'll be having an executive session tonight. So, sir, I'll see the presentation.
At this time, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Hendrickson, who's going to do our announcements of our incredible teachers and our incredible students. Thank you, Dr. Hibbs. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, President Lanatsky, Dr. Hibbs, guests with us this evening, we welcome you to our home, Dugan Elementary School. It's my distinct honor to introduce one of our beloved first grade students, Miss Goldie Cohen, who's going to join her students on stage and welcome you to the presentation this evening.
I'm a Dugan Dragon, and I'm here to say, using our tablets make learning feel like play. Addition, subtraction, we're learning our math in prep on our tablets are helping us on our career path. The first grade is here tonight to say, our whole school district needs tablets today. Board and members, please
much as images of these tablets in use. I invite you to come back anytime during session to see it live. It truly is better live. Thank you for being here with us at Dugan this evening. Thank you, first graders. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Weren't they wonderful?
Everybody, that was amazing. Great job. Teachers, thank you so much. Children, great job.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. It was a really great job. And I think we also cast the music now that we should play both numbers. There you go. Let's take a 5-minute break so we get the kids home. Okay, we're back in session. That's going to bring us to our first public session open to any item. I'm not going to limit it tonight. This is not a big crowd here tonight. I'll just ask to be mindful. We do have 60 minutes for our public session. So, do we have anybody signed up at this point?
Yeah.
Robin Wolf, 101 Cannonade Drive. First, I just want to say those Dugan kids were awesome. As a Dugan parent, they were extra special, awesome. Now, on behalf of the MEF, Marlboro Educational Foundation, I wanted to take this time to thank Dara Ennie for her continued support of the Marlboro Educational Foundation. She is currently the board representative and goes above and beyond for the foundation. She comes to all of our meetings and gave lots of time for the Wines and Rhines event. In addition, I would like to thank Dr. Hibbs, Mr. Balone, and Michael Lolansky for coming to our event. There were also several building administrators, including one of the Dugan administrators and the Milk administrator at the event, and that was wonderful. The event was a great success, and we raised a nice amount of money for the foundation. My son and his friend are looking forward to spending the day with Dr. Hibbs, as we bid on that and we won Superintendent for the Day. Good luck to him. The Educational Foundation has provided over $413,000 in grants to the Marlboro School District. We are hoping that for the next school year, we can get more teachers to apply for grants. In order for this to happen, we would appreciate the principals talking about the foundation to their staff. As a board, we would appreciate if you could talk about that foundation to people you meet. Many people don't even know about this. We are always looking for people to join the foundation, as many of our current trustees' children are beginning to age out of the Marlboro K-8 district. If you'd like to find out more information, talk to Dara or myself, or come to one of our meetings, that would be great. Each of the trustees are dedicated to the Marlboro Educational Foundation, but we need the continued support from each and every one of you. Thank you for your time.
Rob. Thank you. Thank you.
Bonnie Gavison.
Yeah, Rob. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Bonnie Gavison to Corpus Court. Hello. Just a question tonight. My question is for any board member who would like to answer, but I was hoping specifically to hear a response from Bonnie, Gian, and Joanne. And my question to you guys, and to anybody, is do you support federal Common Core standards? And do you support the high stakes, state mandated tests, that tests to those standards? And
So, all the questions are directed to the board president, and it's up to the individual board members if they want to answer or not. But as always, at the end of the public session, then we're going to answer them at that time.
Michael, Mark said I can answer your question back.
Okay.
Why are you only addressing that to 3 board members?
well, I said I would love to hear from anybody who wishes to speak, but my reason for that is for the 3 board members that are up for re-election, and just to know.
Well, the 3 board members that are up for election are myself, Gian, and John.
Oh, okay.
Not Joanne.
Okay, I apologize, I'm not mistaken. So those 3.
Okay.
Okay, or again, anybody who wishes to speak, because I would love to hear, what anyone is willing or wants to say.
So it's up to the individual board members if they want to respond or not. That's up to you.
That's at the end of public session.
At the end of public session, right?
So can you just repeat
The
the
question
question?
was, do you support the federal Common Core standards, and do you support the state mandated park test that tests to those standards?
Okay,
Thank you.
Good evening.
Maybe just,
Amy First-Tolan, 7 Jefferson Road.
thank you.
I just have a few quick questions. Dr. Hibbs, if you could just update us in regard to the refusal numbers, that would be great. I was also wanting to make sure that any student that has already refused for the March park exams, that they don't need to refuse again for the second time, for the next round, April, May. I have a random question in regard to PT and PTO meetings. I wanted to know if a parent that has a child in any school, if that parent can attend PTA meetings or PTO meetings in any other school. And in anticipation of this not being able to be a back and forth, in case you say no, I'd like to know why. I wanted to also make sure that this was the form that was sent in, if anything was already sent in from students that refused to park. I don't know if Pearson has received anything from the schools. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but the kids that already took the test, if everything was sent to Pearson, I just wanted to make sure that for the students who refused the test, that the form that we spoke about was sent in, and I wanted to make sure that the form indicated that there was a parent refusal. I'm sure it was done that way, and I just want to make sure. And that's pretty much it. The scores are back up. The Genesis site is still down. I don't know if there's going to be an update on that. I did want to ask a question just in regard to the students that do refuse when they are in that alternate location. Are they only able to read? And are they only able to read a book that they're not reading in any of their classes? And if that's the case, I just wanted to know why. And again, with no back and forth, if you may say that it's, it's a disadvantage to the children who are taking the park and they don't have that allotted extra time to do homework or read books that they're reading in school. I just wanted to know if there would be an issue as to why the children can't, get more into their studies. It's not really an advantage, but I would think that you would want the children to have as much time as they possibly can in order to learn the curriculum that, they're learning. I don't see any real downside for that. So this last round, children had to bring in a book and they had to read just that book. And I'm wondering if for this round, perhaps going forward, I know that you're not offering any alternate teaching, anything like that. However, they can, just read a book that they are reading in class or maybe do some homework. I think that that would be good. And I also wanted to just mention in the middle school, I know how important instructional days are. We cut PTA meetings back this year because we didn't want the teachers to miss 4 half days instructional time. But in the middle school, in 7th grade, there's an ELA teacher, one teacher for both subjects, who was out, and Mr. Hibbs, I believe you know, he was out about 26 times between September and January. So that's missing reading and writing for 26 days. When he was out, there were random substitute teachers in which stayed with the class for both periods, and they got to read quietly. So there was no instruction. And that's what went on with the substitutes. I was told that they can't have one substitute in the class for more than 2 days, because at that point, they need to be paid health insurance. And I can understand that as being the law, but I wanted to know what kind of an effect that's having on our children. I think having some continuity in the class is very important. Since then, since being out in January, there have been 5 different people in the room. We had a substitute that was in for a couple of days who was actually working in the gym for the first 6 months of the year. And she was being given, she was being given the lesson plans from the teacher and handing out the lesson plans, and if there was any confusion, which of course there was, the children were told to email their teacher and ask for any information that they are confused about and wait to get that email back. We still don't have this teacher back, and we still have substitute teachers, but they're teachers that work in classes in the school, and they are stepping in here and there to help the children. They are pulling kids aside, once or twice, wherever they have any free time. So I just wanted to know, there's 2 months left to this year. I want to know why it's been this way. I want to know if anything could be done at this point in terms of having something permanent in that class. And that's it. Good.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to address the board on that?
Good evening, Mr. Lolansky, board members, Dr. Hibbs.
Last name and address.
Oh, sorry, Mark Rosenwald, Gary Trent. I'll fill it out. A couple of observations and a question. I'm glad to see Dr. Hibbs has moved where he is and cuts down a lot of the chatter and a lot of the private conversations that go on there. I remember a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, that a board member suggested that bring the attorney in for every meeting. And I remember Mrs. Dean specifically sitting there wringing her hands. I remember Mr. Lolansky opining, and Mrs. Dean saying, oh, it's taxpayer dollars. And at every meeting, there would be 2 or 3 questions that came up that, oh, we have to refer it to the attorney. And the public never heard the answer. With the attorney here, we will hear an answer. In addition, at that time, the board was having problems functioning, meetings and so on. Now, due to Mrs. Dean's choosing poorly, we now find the attorney here. Because, as Mr. Lolansky said at the last meeting, you were having problems with the meeting function. I'd like to know how much this is costing the taxpayer. Now, I know Mr. Zittimer's hourly rate is either 160 or 165 in that number. But I want to know if we're being charged travel time, prep time, or anything else. I want to know the exact dollars that he is charging this district to sit here. I would like to know also, possibly, why don't you extend the retainer, as many boards have done, to cover this? And I'd like to know those numbers on a regular basis. And if that's not possible, I will Oprah them. Mrs. Dean, your family is very familiar with Oprahing documents. You do it hundreds of times in the township. And I'm more than happy to do that. But, okay, that aside. Mrs. Matos has sat here many times and talked about transparency on the board. Mrs. Dean has sat here. Mr. Lolansky, you too have sat here. But yet, when we have publicly elected officials who vote on things that affect our children and affect our tax dollars, when asked why a member votes a certain way, there is no answer. You are elected by the public. They are entitled to know why you vote. If you don't want to tell them, maybe you shouldn't be sitting there. So I will ask once again, Mr. Marshall and Mrs. Dean, you abstained on Cheryl Metzger's appointment. Now, appointments are made upon the recommendation of the superintendent. Okay. I would like to know why you abstained. In addition, your husband, Mrs. Dean, has come to many, many meetings. and has stood up and railed against people and said, we need the best people on board. Well, clearly, you're not one of the best to be sitting here. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wish to address the board? Any other?
Or Mr. Rosenwald?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, I could have, but
Okay. Anyone else? I see none. First, I'd like to thank Robin for your kind words and thank you for the work that you put into the Formal Education Foundation, as well as all the other members. And please keep it going. We appreciate that. The whole board appreciates, the township appreciates that. The Bonnie's question. Bonnie's next. Bonnie's question. Anyone on the board wish to respond?
Bonnie, I'll answer your question. Common Core and Park are mandated, so we as a board, or I as a board member, have to follow it, and the superintendent has to follow it. So as a board member, my job is to make sure that the funds are there. We have to make sure that the curriculum is done, and as a board member, we have to pass it, and I have to make sure when I look at curriculum, I make sure that when I read it, when I look through it, it's appropriate, that I feel it's appropriate. When the superintendent comes to me and discusses the testing, and if I hear that there's glitches, or when you stand up and talk about glitches, or when the parents don't want to do the testing, I listen and I discuss it with him if I feel that there are problems. And as a board member, that's my responsibility, but it is mandated. So as a board, we have to comply with all that the state requires of us and the federal government requires of us. So that's what we do. And that's what I do as a board member. When it changes, then we will have to change along with it. If Chris Christie has second thoughts about Common Core, which he has spoken about and says he's going to look into it, then at that time, we will then have to change our curriculum, because the Department of Education will say no more with Common Core, then we'll have to deal with it at that time. If they say park testing is no longer what we have to do, then we'll have to deal with it at that time. And that's what we'll have to do. But until that time, we'll have to deal with park testing, we'll have to deal with Common Core, and we'll just have to deal with what we've been handed. And until that time, we'll deal with what we've been handed. And we'll do the best that we can to give the best education that Marlborough will give to our children, the best that we possibly can, and we'll do the best that we possibly can do with the park testing, and that's it. And until things change, that's what we'll do. And if parents want to pull their kids out of the testing, we'll deal with that too, and we'll make the best accommodations that we can possibly can. We'll support the superintendent in the best way that we can to make funds available to him, because that's what boards of education do. We make funds available, and I hope that answers your question. That's what we do as boards of education. We write policies, we help him with his regulations, and we just do the best that we can under the circumstances that we are given.
Anybody? No? Thank you.
Bonnie, I think you know kind of how I feel. I'm not going to repeat everything that Mrs. Rosenwald said. I think this administration and this board and people on prior board have positioned our children to be as successful as they can be with what is required from the federal and state government. I think this district has done well. I have a problem That's, as a board member, I think we've done as much as we can do in that regards, positioning our children to succeed in what the federal and state mandates are. We have to follow them, to Mrs. Rosenwald's point. On a personal level, I gotta be honest with you, I'm a little sick of federal and state mandated stuff coming down the pipe without federal and state mandated money. Because basically they're saying to the local districts, you put your hat in your hand and you go out to the public and you get that money and you figure out how to get it done. If this administration was to do what the federal and state mandates said and how they rolled it out, the content of what was in there, I think if our administration tried doing that, this board would have been probably up in arms and saying you can't do it. But we had no other choice because it is federal and state mandated. Personally, I had the opportunity to go away with the Marine Academy of Science and Technology. There was 750 kids in the Key Club in a hotel, from freshmen to seniors, and I had the opportunity, I know I was a chaperone, it was quite the weekend, but I had an opportunity to talk to a lot of kids, as well as talk to a lot of my daughter's friends from Marlboro, and it's a wide spectrum of children, and they all had the same thing: crazy, stupid, waste of time. Some of them put down some inane answers on, like, insane answers, because this is stuff we never saw before, we weren't taught before. You wasted a month of our life prepping, and then taking these tests and not teaching us. I gotta be honest with you, I said to you, keep doing what you're doing, and I'll make my decision after tests come out, and I'd love to see the data, but to hear Governor Christie was, I thought, a little bit more succinct when he said, Common Core and Park is not going to exist as we know it. And I got to be honest with you. I'm not speaking as a board member now. Can I take my board member hat off when I say this? I don't want this district to spend another dime on anything Common Core or Park related until we find out what direction the state's going in. Because again, I'm going to say this, if Dr. Hibbs was to turn around and try to implement what the state has said you have to implement, we'd probably ride him out of here on a rail. I don't agree with, I don't think it's going in the right direction. I hope Governor Christie sees the light, because when you have children, and I'm talking a wide range of kids from all different schools, from the best of the best to, and they say they're all the same thing, it's dumb. It was stupid, it was insane, it was a waste of time. The questions that they asked and the answers that they gave didn't make sense, or it was almost trickery. I find it problematic, I really do. And I hope that boards around the state turn around and push back and say, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to put any more money into it. And I know, Dr. Hibbs, you don't want to hear that, but from a personal level, I want to know what the state's doing before I say to you guys, we need more money. We need more money to fund something. We raise the bar on the finances, but we don't raise the bar on the education. I mean, that to me is insane. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So, again, I think, and this administration has done a great job prepping our kids. Please don't misunderstand where I'm coming from. They had to do what they had to do. The teachers did a great job. And with a lot of confusion, because it was only 2 years ago, we'd ask questions, and, well, that information hasn't come out yet, so we're not exactly sure what the state's going to look for. That was only 2 years ago I was hearing that. So this administration and all of the teachers have been under a lot of, they've gone through some difficult times, and I think they've done a great job. So when I give my personal opinion, I don't do it to insult the educators in this town, or the administration.
Speaking for them.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I said you're speaking for the educators when you speak.
Can't get back.
I just feel that I don't think another dime should be spent. And I'm not talking just this district, I'm talking about all the districts should just push back and say, enough's enough, because from what I read, it takes one state the size of New Jersey to bail out. And Pearson turns around and says, this is not economically feasible for us to stay in this game, because it's about dollars and cents to them. It's not about education. So enough's enough on a personal level. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to repeat what Rosamel and Dyers already said. Okay, I'm as a board member work with the superintendent, implement whatever is required, and the experience that I had is from operation school system wide. I think it's really good because our teachers and curriculum groups and superintendents are working together and work very hard for our students to meet the requirement. They really work hard. With the parents' request, I see them to satisfy whatever they can. So I am pleased to see that. And personally, I have an sister-in-law who is in Philadelphia in the public school district, and my daughter is very involved. They have their concern about this whole thing. Me, I'm watching, I'm evaluating. At this time, I cannot see if the park is the way or not, but I realize it is a change with a good intention, but it's too early to say.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? What?
I know it's not we have plenty of time tonight, and it will take 1 minute, and it's good stuff.
You can't. We have protocol, but you can do the second public session.
There's another public session.
Yeah, the second one.
Well, buddy, hang out.
Okay. So,
I'll take that part. I just want to reply to a couple of things Mr. Rosenwald said. I need Dr. Hibbs, or you'd like to clarify why the attorney's here. I don't remember it being because of Vicki Dean. And number two, for the record, I have never gone to the township ever in my 8 years of living in Marlboro and submitted an open request ever in my name.
Your husband has hundreds.
It doesn't matter what my husband has done. I'm an individual. I am the elected official on this board, not my husband. I have never submitted an open request to the township for anybody, and I have never asked anybody to ever resign from a position. That's me, personally.
okay. Let me speak to Paul first. Get to everything in order. I said it before, and I'll repeat what I said the last time. I agree with Bonnie. What Bonnie said, we have to support and what the state tells me to do at the time, But I said it before. I hope whatever they do next, there will be a next. And it's probably going to come sooner than anybody would like. Sooner than later, the next. And they do it right, and they start in the younger grades and work themselves up. Because you're going to flip the whole thing on its side. You can't flip it all together in the whole district. Teachers are going to teach a different way. Students have to learn a different way. I just feel they need to do that as they progress through the grades. A younger child adapts much easily, and when time to get up to the upper grades, it's secondhand already. So I just hope whatever they do next, everybody flips into next. There will be a next thing. There's always going to be a next thing because there's a reason to exist, and there's a reason to have committees, and there's a reason to think and sell different books and different things, just like everybody else has said. John, it's about the money. 3 years from now, they'll have to take a way to make money again. They won't call it Common Core, they'll call it something else. It might be sooner than that. But I just hope when they do that, they do it in a way that they understand that it takes time for teachers to adjust. It takes time for students to adjust. If you start in the younger grades, you work yourself up, you won't have the backlash you had this time around this Common Core. So we'll leave it at that for Common Core. Next is Amy.
Yeah, I'm going to go right down the line. Robin, I would be happy to pass along the administrators. The MEF is incredible, and you do so many great things for our kids. I will always support you and the grants. I'll try and drum you up more business. Amy, so the first one was refusal numbers. I think honestly, since the 383, I think I only saw one more email come in. So that's where I think we are, right around 384-ish. Second question was, if a student refused the performance-based assessment, do they have to re-refuse again for the EOY? Absolutely not. They do not have to. It will automatically be put in the room where there is no testing. The only thing that we ensured is that we wanted to make sure we had an email from the parent or a recognition, so that in case there was ever a question, and we have that from everybody. Mark, I'm going to ask you the question, this third one. So the question was, if there is a PTA or a PTO meeting, can anyone go to that, especially a parent or a community member that does not have a child that attends that area?
There's no right or wrong answer to this, but I'll tell you what my experience is. My experience is that they are open meetings and that anybody from the community who wants to go to a PTO or PTA meeting can attend. That's my experience.
Are they open? Did you buy membership in that school?
I'm sorry?
There's a PTA membership in every district.
Are they? Every district does it differently, so I don't know enough about Marlboro's system to know whether they are open meetings where they...
PTO has a membership.
Do they invite the community to attend? Are they open doors? Are they at school facilities? That's why it's hard for me to answer the question in a vacuum without knowing more about your PTOs and PTAs. Like I said before, I've seen it done differently at every district that I've been to.
I'll let you know.
I've seen some where they're open to the community. I've seen others where they say it's an executive committee and it's closed. So let me find out more information, Dr. Hibbs. I don't mean to punt, but I want to find some facts out and then we'll talk about it.
And then I'll be happy, Amy, to email you the response, okay?
Dr. Hibbs, can I just add?
Yeah, the bylaws is also something I'd like to see in the process as well, because the bylaws sometimes speak to that issue as well.
There's a general set of bylaws for national PTA, and of course we have PTO as well, so it's not all national PTA. With those bylaws, they're slightly changed, only because everything is typically mandated in them. But with our schools, we actually have a PTA membership. A lot of it is due to additional insurance, of course. A lot of it is due for safety and security, of course. And if you're speaking about specific children within your school, if there are guests coming, which I've had in my prior PTAs, they typically would call and get permission from PTA presidents and the administrator of the building, of course. Or the administrator would call the PTA president and request for a visitor to come in for a specific reason. But it has to do to the majority of that's how it's written, something of the effect that it has to do with the majority of your actual children that you're representing.
So it sounds to me like I will gather the bylaws that exist, I will come back to you, and then I will come back to report. Amy, I want to keep going down your list. Your next question was, did we adhere to the system that we had talked about before, saying both parent and students refused? Yes, we did. So your question is, did we use the appropriate form? We absolutely did. And did I keep my word? I most certainly did. The next question is about refusal students reading a book. So the general rule is, and it's really a procedural rule, is that if the students stay in session and refused in session, which we didn't allow, they can't read anything that would help them, that could conceivably help them. If they are in one of our rooms, I don't care what they read. So if they want to read The Outsiders and it's part of it, I will be happy to allow that to happen. I'd have to talk to my admin team, which I have no problems doing. But at that moment, if they would like to read, they can certainly read, and I'm not going to stand in the way of learning. The next one, I'm going to turn it to Mr. Vaughn for a second to talk about the general plan.
So, for the teacher you're referencing, right now we are using our certificated ELA teachers from the middle school. They are pushing in during their prep periods, and they are taking responsibility for all that teacher's classes. So you're getting a continuity of instruction, you're getting them carrying out the exact curriculum that teacher would have followed. Then in the middle of May, we have a teacher that's actually returning from maternity leave. She is an ELA certified teacher. She is going to slide into that spot for the remainder of the year.
There's a plan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's not who's what.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a certified, properly certified ELA teacher, Marlboro ELA teacher, is going into that spot for person here.
So Mr. Rosenwald, I will tell you that actually what you, part of your, my reasoning, part of my reason, most of the reason that Mr. Zimmer here is, as you said in your speech, many questions have been coming up, more now than in the past about during a board meeting, ask the attorney, we need to help the attorney. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a educational attorney. I don't know all the education laws. It's become increasingly harder and harder for me to run the meeting and have the board have the continuity of nothing happens to a week, as everybody knows. We can only do business here. We can't do business once we leave this room. We can't talk to each other. We can't email each other. We can't. The only process that takes place is here, and we're just falling too far behind by not having the answers. But Mr. Zimmerman here, and already last week was very helpful in answering many things. So that's my answer to you on that. I don't know if Cindy has numbers yet on Mr. Zimmerman's cost. It only was one meeting, it was last week.
Yeah, it was 1362, I think, something like that. So that was for that one meeting. I just remember because I didn't do a bill last week.
I'm sorry, what was the number?
1352.
1352.
$1,300.
Yeah.
That meeting, if I remember correctly, didn't end until about midnight.
At least. So, I mean, we can explore looking at doing a retainer thing or something like that. If the board chooses that. Morgan, I can talk about options.
Sure. Okay.
Mike?
Yeah.
Are you done?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask something. I think you're absolutely correct that more questions are arising now than they did years ago. But since Mr. Rosenwald had mentioned something that's very important to us generally, and me specifically on the board, is transparency. And I will say it, I sat there for many years, and this board's transparency is infinite amount of numbers, more so than it was many years ago. And when you are more transparent, there are more questions. Dr. Hibbs is free to answer everything, and I think that is also part of it. I think that we're a very well-working board, and legal assistance is much appreciated on your side. Thank you.
Okay. That'll move us to our review of the curriculum guide, gifted and talented.
Yeah. I did not, Mr. Ballone is not here because the only change to this curriculum right here, Gifted and Talented Grade 2, is that they simply inserted the next generation science standards. That's the only change. Everything else was as is. If you have any specific questions, I'd be happy to look at it and answer it. But that was really the only minor modification. And those are the next science standards that are coming. They will be implemented in the coming years. So they're not Common Core, they're next generation.
The resources that are listed on the curriculum, those are everything that we've already implemented anyway in our...
Yes. Or anything that would be ordered in the course of a normal supply or for the year.
Anybody else on the curriculum guide?
Yeah, the curriculum, this is like for one school year.
Yeah, it's actually, and it's one topic under grade 2. There's several topics. This is one, it's a SOAR subject, scientific methods to things that fly. So yes, it's part of the education in grade 2 for gifted and talented.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on gifted and talented? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hibbs.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, move to old business. Anyone on the board have any old business news?
I know we have to talk about full-day kindergarten, and my question was simple, I guess. Are we going to see it on the agenda so we can speak about it in the near future? Because as I remember correctly, Cindy needs more information for us moving forward. I just don't want to be caught up in, at the end of May saying, okay guys, you have to decide on this because she has to hand it in tomorrow.
Absolutely. It is definitely going to come up. And one of the things that we absolutely need to discuss is how we are going to use some form of someone for PR. Because I think in the short, to help us in public relations, because in the short time frame turnaround, I think that's going to be essential for us navigating to success. Yes, so it'll be on agendas, absolutely coming up almost consistently, right? Sam?
Yeah, and May 5th agenda. May 5th, we will be having bond counsel, financial advisor coming and walking through the plan with you about the whole process of the steps of where we're going to go, getting it on the ballot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And that gives us enough time until you
Yeah,
have to
because you
hand
have to do it in
everything in.
July.
So
we should definitely put her on for next week too.
At this point, there's nothing the board is holding up on, right?
No.
Okay. That's it, thank you.
Anybody else on old business? Anybody have any new business? Okay. Good.
I think actually Stacy brought something up. Did you mention Genesis?
Genesis updates?
Yes.
Sure, I can absolutely do that. So the long and short is, I'll just paint the picture. We had an update that was scheduled over spring break, and with that update came a corrupt file that essentially just destroyed our server and absolutely caused a crash. Since then, we essentially had to rebuild and migrate and do a whole host of different backups to make sure that we were okay. There was nothing wrong with the server that we used. It actually it was bigger and had more memory than the one that Freehold Regional uses. It was just a freak thing that happened. When that went down, I believe it was Thursday, any grades for parents that were entered, or for staff that were entered, I believe Thursday at 4 o'clock. If they had entered at around that time frame, some grades were lost. So we sent emails to the staff about how we were experiencing a difficulty. We offered to input any grades and work with the staff to make sure that we did that, and they needed any extra help. And we're going to be set to migrate back, I believe, by the very beginning of next week. So there's going to be a communication that's going to go not only to staff, but also to parents. Genesis set us up with a temporary URL. I have sometimes received emails saying I'm having difficulty. I would log on, it will be up. So I don't think it runs quite as fast as the other. It is running, but we will be back to normal by approximately Monday is the plan for right now. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else with business? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the final public session. Open to any item. Anyone from the public, first the board, sir.
Mark Rosenwald, Gary Drive. Mrs. Matos again brought out the transparency issue. My question to Mr. Marshall and Mrs. Dean, as elected officials, do you feel that you owe the public an explanation of why you vote? And if you don't, well, that is another thing for down the road. But Mrs. Dean, you can pay attention. You don't have to read that. I would like to reiterate my question. Why did you abstain on that vote? Mrs. Dean, pay attention, please. Thank you very much.
Comment should be directed to the board president, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. Through you, I'm asking the question of the two members. I don't want to have to restate it. They know what it is.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the public wish to address the board? Sure.
Dana Carney, 50 Manor Drive. I have a question. It was mentioned earlier that you as a board are here to make policies and put procedures into effect, correct? And I actually think, Mark, that it's a good thing that you're here, because I have a question. There was a very definite policy put into effect during the park for the children that refused. It was, you let them read a book, nothing that would help their education, but I know that you wouldn't want to hinder their education. But where is the policy that was in effect for children with special needs? If they had an IEP or a 504, what type of policy was put into effect, where can I locate this policy prior to this moment, and how do I know that it's going to be taken care of properly next time? Because I'm not really as concerned what book they read during the limited time, but if there's a health need or a really, really specific, important need that these proctors are not made aware of, then that's negligence on behalf of the board, the entire district, and every single member of the staff. That they're not my child or anyone else's child should be put in a room, not with being classified and not being, the person's not made aware of their special needs. Isn't that the point of an IEP? Would you like to respond?
We can't
Mr.
respond
Attorney?
till after.
No, we'll wait till the public's done and then we'll respond until the end.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you sign the clipboard? Did you sign?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for your answers. I appreciate them. I also wanted to say that this Common Core, it's been a dialogue, and everything, all the answers that I heard tonight are all part of that dialogue, and I was happy to hear the answers that we did. I understand that the board is here and they have an obligation to help fulfill state mandates. In the past, it's always worked. Prior to Common Core, New Jersey ranked at the top of the nation educationally by any standards, PISA and whatever other testing. New Jersey came out on top based on the New Jersey state standards that we've had and the testing. So to that point, just following and doing what came from the state worked. Having had a couple of years to see what this PARCC test, what this Common Core standards and the PARCC test and the big ball of wax that comes with that, in 2 short years we're seeing what a debacle it is. So I don't think your only obligation is just to do what's mandated. I think we're at a very unique time in education where we need also, not that we haven't always looked at what's right for the kids and what is right for education. I think more so now than ever, we need to question these mandates that are being shoved down throats from the state and from the federal government. The Senate has recently made amendments to the SEA saying that Common Core does not need to be implemented at the state level, and that the federal government cannot incentivize them to do so. So that's where this is going. So if you want to be ahead of the game, I think we need to pay attention to what's going on. Another state today, I'm sorry, I don't want to open up my phone, but just repealed Common Core at the state level, and it's happening state by state by state. It's going to happen in New Jersey. Christie has indicated that so far. SB is still, towing the line, basically what you said, this is where we are now, we have to do it, but we need to question why are we doing that, and are we committed to this, and is it going to be changing, and be part of the dialogue on a state level and a national level, and advocate for what's right for our students and their education, which was not broken to begin with. Was it perfect? No, it never is, but it's not the debacle we're seeing now. And I thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Anyone else on public wish to address the board? Seeing none, Mr. Rosenwald, I can't respond on behalf of Greg and Victoria, but if either one of them would like to respond. Okay, questions?
Mrs. Carney, there is, in the IEP, so the children were not actually having instruction delivered to them. They were in an educational program. So anything health related, that would have been either in a 504 or they weren't taking an assessment.
It doesn't matter, they were in a school building.
We can't have a lot of back and forth. The short answer then is we always follow our IEPs and our 504s. If you have a specific question, you can ask.
No, I asked specifically, where is the policy and the procedure that was put into place? I know there was a specific one put in for general ed children. If I confused you at all with my wording initially, I apologize.
No, it's okay.
I'm going to be very clear. There was a very clear, concise policy, which you stated right here to Amy regarding the sit and stare policy. They can sit and they can read a book, nothing that of course would help them with their, current education, ending off with, but, you want them to learn and do well. Where was the policy that was put in place? You stated to me, please, for children who are classified and need certain accommodations and modifications. Where is that?
There is no policy, because a policy would have to run through the Board of Education. The procedure that we use for parent refusals, which you can use whatever word you want, opt-out, refusals, whatever it is that you want to say, when we had a parent letter and then a student refusal that went together, the child did not take the park. The person that would have been with any child was informed of anything they needed to know about the child, any peanut allergies, anything in a 504 that will be relevant, and anything in an IEP. So that's the best answer I can give you. There is no policy, because a policy absolutely has to run through the Board of Education. There is a procedure that we put into place that you just stated, for our children who ended up refusing, but I don't.
So how far?
Can't go back and forth.
No, I have one question.
Ma'am, we can't have it back and forth, please. Thank you.
No, but I'm happy to reach out to you tomorrow. How's that? Okay, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
Sure.
Okay. The word, you're using the word policy, and I think there's some confusion, so let me just explain. The board passes policies and regulations regularly on our agenda, and those are specific rules. I kind of call them laws.
No,
there's no back and forth, so let me explain. There are rules that we pass, and that's like laws that we pass so that the school district runs, and those are, so that there's no confusion, those are our policies. So when you use the word policies, that keeps the school district running. What Dr. Hibbs and what everybody what we're using, so that there's no confusion, Dr. Hibbs has put in place some rules for PARC so that it runs smoothly. So when the parents have decided not to have their children tested and they're going into these specific rooms and allowed to read, those are rules, not policies. Those are best practices for these, I want to call them best practices, for the PARC testing. So not to call them policies, because that's something completely different. I mean, to call them policies, the board did not pass a policy that governs the PARC testing. So to keep it clear, we don't have anything on file for PARC testing that the board passed. These are things that the superintendent and the administration has instituted to keep the PARC testing running smoothly. So, okay, so you have to speak. So there is something different. So I want to make that very clear to keep that. Okay.
That's not to say that the board won't at some point find a need. Ma'am. It's not to say that the board at some point in the future won't find the need perhaps to adopt a policy dealing with PARC testing or statewide testing or some sort of regulation that might go under that policy depending on how the whole thing evolves. So although we don't have one on the books now, it's not to say that we won't at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call. All right, thank you. I'm going to read the executive session resolution. Be resolved in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Marlborough Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to personnel legal exceptions prescribed by NJSA 10:4-12 with the purpose of discussing the superintendent's contract, attorney-client privilege, personnel matters, and security monitor negotiations. anticipated length of time executive session will be 90 minutes, and action will not be taken public at the executive session. Further on, the minutes executive session will be released from the need for confidentiality according to NJSA 10:4. That's 12 no longer exists. That's seconded by Victoria. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? No. Okay, which passes. I will make a motion to adjourn executive session, seconded by John. All those in favor? Anybody against? No. We're adjourned. Thank you everybody for coming out tonight.